Hey guys, Smitty here. Thanks for tuning in. So we are back in Grounded, and as you can see, we did something a little different here. So I finally took a deep dive into creative mode, and this is the result. I did a Laketown. I did do a cinematic of this, so make sure you guys check that out if you haven't already. But I have been getting a lot of comments and questions about this build, so what I want to do today is give a little more detailed look at what we have going on here. So, without further ado, grab a snack, grab a drink, and let's get right into it. So I guess where we'll start this tour is at the biggest building. My idea for this building was to create a bit of maybe like a town hall or town center. Maybe somewhere where like the Duke or the mayor would live. Like I said, it's definitely the biggest building in this build. We do have it, furnished to some extent. This would be the office. We do have balconies all the way around, just because I think it's nice to have a good visual on the town if this is where maybe the important official would live. The middle floor actually I haven't furnished yet, so it's empty. But the top floor is the where the mayor or the duke would live. We do have maybe a dining table. Looks like there was a feast that got a little bit messy here. And then we have a master bedroom here, open design, so you can still see the whole town. And so this would be where the mayor lived or something like that. We do have roof access, just so we can get up here, get a good advantage of everything. But yeah, so that's the town hall. So the second building I created was this one right here, and my inspiration, or what I was going for here, was like a mead hall. So if you guys are like me, you might have played a lot of Skyrim, and that's definitely what I chose as my inspiration for this one. So just a place where you could host feasts. We have some food here. You'd house your mead in these big tubs as well. But I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I kind of like the semi-open design as well. I like how you can circle the actual tables from above, and you actually go down into the table where we'd be hosting the feast. It looks really nice as well when the morning sun rises, because it peeks through right over here, and then the sunset we get as well when it shines through this direction. So again, really happy how that turned out. We did try to experiment. The idea for this was to try to create like a chandelier structure or something coming from the ceiling. So I think I do like it. I think it makes it a little bit more interesting. It kind of fills this like negative space in this kind of vast building. But again, really, really happy with how that turned out. So as we work our way around here, some things that I did experiment with were some different ship designs. This was the first one I created, and what I actually did was used different roofing squares to try to create this hull look, and I think it works pretty well in terms of I think it's pretty believable. Definitely also experimented with some floating platforms here. So my idea for this little area was maybe this was just a little fish hut. So maybe the fishermen would come in, offload their catch for the day, and this is where they would hang them. If we work our way around the dock, as you can see, we have some other different ship models that we were experimenting with. As you can see in this one, it's a little bit thicker, but we also had the deck kind of semi underneath the hull, right? So it gives a nice little bowl shape, and nice little different design. So I wasn't sure which one I liked better, but did some experimenting, and happy with how that turned out. We do have a mini one right over here, and my idea for this was maybe it looks almost like a motor on the back of the boat. The first one's actually just attached to the dock, but these ships are actually buoyed up by the floating platform. And so that's actually really nice, because then you can put these ships in any direction you want. So it's not just like a grid, or it's not like perpendicular or parallel to everything else. And that's actually really important for these builds, because it just makes things look a little more organic, and not as like structured. Also a nice thing about putting these on floating platforms, if you look really closely, these ships actually bob up and down with the water. So again, just gives it a much more organic feel, as opposed to some of the more rigid structures. This ship right here, so this is the big one, and I'm really happy with how this one turned out. It's basically a very similar concept to the other ships. We just kind of scaled it up and then built on top of it. We do have, we try to show that maybe it's carrying some cargo here. This is maybe where the captain's quarters would be, the steering wheel. And then we did actually implement a way to get up this thing. And this was, something I had to work on for a while because I wanted to make it as discreet. Like, I wanted a way to get up to here, but I still needed it to be as discreet as possible, as to not kind of, take away from the build itself. But we can actually get up here. Alright. So we're up on the crow's nest. So yeah, we can get up here, and, one great advantage of everything around. What's a ship if it doesn't have a crow's nest? And then, the awesome thing about this is the zip lines aren't just, for look. They're actually a pretty cool function that we can actually zip on down to the deck, right? So really happy with how this one turned out. I might actually do a tutorial on this one later on, because I've been getting a lot of questions about some of these ships and how to build them, and would love to see you guys implementing some of these into your own builds. So the next buildings I had built are these ones right here. They are connected, but they're two different buildings. So these are two different shops. So this shop is really meant to be more of a tool shop, right? So you can get your hammers, your axes, whatever tools you need for the day. I think, I wanted to, hopefully this kind of looks like maybe like a cash register where the owner might, work from. But yeah, I like the idea of creating a world that actually people exist in, right? So you got to create the story behind each of these builds and really think about like the people who would live here. So this next one is more of like the armorers, or the, where you go to get clothes, right? So similar concept. We have some of them on display over here, and they would live upstairs right over here. And I don't know, yeah, I really liked how we did the concept where they're kind of joined by this little bridge here, and then you have the dock that runs underneath it. This next building over here is the idea I had for this one was a bit of a restaurant or something of that nature, right? So we come up here, we have some tables, where they would house the drinks, where you would check in, check out. So these are actually baskets, right? So storage baskets, and I toyed around with the idea of having these as chairs, right? I mean, I think it really works, to be honest. There are the ant chairs, but it's good to be creative and switch things up when you have the opportunity, and I think it still reads as chairs in this room. So we do have a basement where, perhaps we store some of the extra stuff for the restaurant. We go upstairs, we have some bedrooms, and then we do have this balcony here, which works really nicely, actually. I think it makes the build look much more interesting. And whenever you're building these buildings, you're trying to prevent it from looking just blocky and just square, right? Because that's just boring and uninteresting. So anything you can do that creates any kind of relief or interesting geometry on these buildings, like, definitely do it, because you'd be surprised how much it actually helps and how much it makes it look more interesting. So these buildings over here are just a little more residential. So this is really meant to be more of like an inn, and I did like, actually, whenever you can incorporate a natural part of the landscape into the build, like, I always think that's a good idea. I just think it looks nice. So definitely like, incorporating this lily here. So maybe call it, the Lily Pad Inn or something like that. I don't know. But if we come in here, this is where you would check in. Just some like seating. And then we have some rooms, right? So each one has a bedroom, furnished. Maybe where you would check in if you were visiting for the weekend. some other rooms just on the floor down here as well. We do have another building here just next door. And this is just, again, more residential, I guess. So we have some rooms on each floor, some storage. If we go upstairs, as you can see, we've broken these out into a couple different rooms, just maybe where maybe a family would live or something like that. But yeah, you gotta, if you're gonna create a world, you gotta create a place where the people are gonna live, right? So this area right here. So I had an idea because I wanted to create like a harbor. You know, maybe where, I don't know, maybe where like the diplomats would come in and they could walk on up to the mead hall, and this is where negotiations and feasts would happen or something like that, right? But so I created some of this docking area, and I experimented with some different boat ideas. Really pleased with how this actually turned out. You know, maybe it looks like a little more elvish or something like that. I don't know. It's always good to just mess around, and you know, you really got to use your imagination when it comes to some of these games that give you a bunch of tools, and then you just gotta put it together in different ways. It's completely blocked off by the docks, as you can see, but there is an opening on this bridge that I created, and you know, it's always interesting trying to create different bridge structures that look nice, just given like the blockiness of some of the assets that you have. You can't just like create like a cool looking suspension bridge, but I think we succeeded here. Definitely looks interesting enough, and it's buoyed by some of the floating platforms here, so I think it works. I think it definitely at least looks decent, right? So this structure right here is my attempt at like a barracks, so maybe where like the guards would be holed up. Definitely has a more fortress-like structure. You know, maybe this is where the guards would reside. You can actually go underneath here as well. So, you know, each little bastion out here also has a second level. And this is the gate. And then so we can go in here. This would be, you know, the guards' quarters with all their equipment and where they would sleep. And these are just some, you know, smaller huts, maybe where some of the, you know, the beggars would live or something like that. I think it just, you know, changing, like, variance in scale and angle and, like, geometry is what really makes things look interesting. So anything you can do to, you know, catch the eye in a different way is, you know, effective. So just from, like, a structural perspective here, yeah, no. So this is like the linchpin of the entire build here. So this is where we started, and this is where everything is connected to this part of land, right? And if we go underwater, we can see that, I mean, everything's floating, right? I mean, you can't build underneath the water. So I'm almost curious, like, if I took out this section, like, would the whole thing, like, implode? I mean, maybe not, because some of it's attached to lily pads, which I think technically count as ground, but so I think I covered most everything of this Laketown build. If you guys have any questions on anything I covered, or maybe you want a more in-depth tutorial of maybe some of the ships, or maybe like the mead hall or something like that, definitely let me know down in the comments. What I hope to do in this video is really inspire people to push the creativity with this game. You know, I really want to see this game succeed, and you know, part of that responsibility is on the community, right? I mean, the developers give us a lot of different tools, and you know, it's our job to put those to use and create something epic. So I challenge you guys, you know, create something epic, and let's show the world that this is a game that's worth being played. But anyway, guys, if you enjoyed the episode, please make sure you like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks.